A very good morning to all of you, and welcome again to yet another interesting session of WealthWise with Edelwise. I'm very glad to welcome Mr. Jeevan Patwa on our platform once again. As you all are aware, Mr. Patwa has been conversant with the equity markets for a decade now and has been investing in small caps and mid caps successfully with around a 45% CAGR. He has completed his mechanical engineering from IIT Kanpur and is also a CFA charter holder. Mr. G share his perspective on investing the market, which is now trading at a new high. He will cover factors driving the change, such as a structural shift in savings, change in the and every investor learn to ignore the noise and maintain focus. Welcome, Mr. Patwa, to our platform once again.
Thank
Please
you.
note that there might be a time lag of 10 to 15 seconds due to network or connectivity issues. I request you all to kindly bear with us. Over to you, Mr. Patwa.
Thank you, Anaga. Good morning, everybody. The standard disclaimer before we start the session. This is a pure knowledge sharing session with no buy sell recommendation on any stock. I may be owning the stock that may be discussed during the session. So good morning, friends. Market में जल्लोश है. Every stock, every sector is moving up. A lot of people has made a lot of money in last 1 year. The stocks are 3x, 5x, 7x in last 1 year. So everybody is happy. The market is touching new highs. Don't know what to do, whether we should invest, whether we should hold, or whether we should book the profit. So I think this is the right time. I thought we should be discussing how to invest in a market which is trading at new high. So I have decided this presentation in three parts. Firstly, I'm going to talk a little bit on the period, the last 2007 to 2021 period. So I have purposely chosen this period because in 2007, the market was equally euphoric. All sectors, all stocks were going up. And so that's the reason basically I've chosen this particular period. Then we will talk about the few structural drivers for Indian market. And lastly, I will give my some advice. You can implement or you can ignore. That's your choice. So let's start with the hindsight. So Nifty 2007 peaked to June 2021. Nifty actually peaked in 2008 January, but since this is a monthly data, I have just taken 2007 December. So there will be some data error, but ignore the data errors. Try to focus on the message that I want to convey. So in 2008 January, market was trading at a peak of 6,300. Then it collapsed due to the Lehman crisis. It went down to almost 2,700. There was the Satyam saga. Then there was the Eurozone debt crisis. From 2,700, Nifty started stabilizing and then started moving up. And it went to again 6,300 in 2011. So it was almost a 3 years period. After that, the Nifty touched the same peak. From there were a lot of challenges with the economy. There was a twin deficit problem, high fiscal deficit, high trade deficit. There were multiple scams across the country, like Colgate scam. There's a 2G scam. The market again went down to almost 4,500. It then started again going up after the Modi era. So once the Modi government came in power in 2014, the stock market again started moving up, and it touched almost 9,000 in the Nifty. Post that, there was a demonetization, there was Brexit, so market touched 7,000 from there. So market actually collapsed from 9,000 to 7,000. There was a GST implemented across the country, and there was Ireland FS scam, but still market kept on moving up. So it went up to almost 12,300, and then there was a Corona outbreak. So market actually fall from there to 7,000 levels. That time almost every technical analyst was of the view that it will touch the previous peak like 6,300, but didn't happen as usual. So technical analysis actually failed that time and it went up again. And since then it was just moving up in a single direction, that is upward. So a lot of people started booking profits at 10,000 level, at 11,000 level, at 12,000 level, and market just started climbing up. So now there is a situation when everybody wants to get into the market. There is a panic buying right now, which has started, right? So what are the lessons learned from all this, the 6,300 to 15,800, 16,000 journey? What are the lessons learned? So for that, let's look at one more chart. This is another chart where I've compared four stocks, HDFC Bank, TCS, Nestle, and Divi's Lab with Nifty in the same period. I have chosen these four stocks purposely because all those four stocks were present or listed in the market in 2007, and today they are part of Nifty. So I've just tried to compare these four stocks with Nifty. So in the period from 2007 to today, Nifty has actually delivered 2.5 times return. So CAGR, it is 7% CAGR for last 13 years, whereas HDFC Bank has delivered 8 times return with 18% CAGR. TCS has delivered 12 times returns with CAGR of 21%. Nestle has delivered 12x returns with CAGR of 21%. And Divi's Lab has actually delivered 9x returns with CAGR of 18%. So what are the learnings from our past history? There is one more interesting data point that I want to share with you. When Nifty has delivered only 2.5 times return in the same period, there are more than 100 stocks which has delivered 20 times or 500 time returns. So there are stocks like Symphony, PI Industries, Relaxo, Caplin Point, Vinati Organics, Bharat Rasayan, Alkyl Amines, Bajaj Finance, Testy Bite, Ajanta Pharma. There is a list of stocks which have actually delivered more than 100 time returns. And there are many stocks which have actually delivered more than 20 time return in the same period. So the learning is when index delivered only 2.5 time returns from the last peak in December 2007 to current peak, there are multiple businesses which are able to deliver almost 20 times or 200 time return in the same period. The CAGR for Nifty was meager 7%, whereas the return of multiple businesses, the CAGR I am talking, so CAGR is almost 25% to 60%. This rise was contributed by consistent earnings growth, and this is very important, consistent earnings growth and therefore P re-rating. Rise in those businesses was more steady and more predictable. So what we can actually learn from this? There are only two things that are important. The stock price is a function of intrinsic value of the business and the market sentiments. The intrinsic value of the business doesn't change too much every quarter or every year, but market sentiment does change, and that provides us the opportunity to own these businesses at wonderful valuations. So ignore the market levels. Don't try to focus on the Nifty levels. Don't try to focus on the market levels. Instead, you should be focusing more on the business valuations. If you are getting a good business at good valuation, buy irrespective of market levels. Market look riskier when we think short term. So yeah, I have plotted the graph, which is a monthly prices. So the graph is little less volatile. If I would have plotted daily graph, it would have been more volatile. If I plotted the graph on yearly basis, it would have been even lesser volatile. So when we think short term, volatility increases. The market start looking more riskier. But as we elongate our time horizon, the risk actually disappears. So focus on the value of the business and not the price. And the value of the business is driven by only two things. And this is very, very important to understand. There are only two things that are important. One is the growth, which in turn driven by the market opportunity. And second is sustainable return on capital. So try to focus on businesses where market opportunity is large and the business has sustainable competitive advantage to defend its above average ROC over a longer period. So that's the learning for us, that we need to focus on businesses where market opportunity itself is very large so that business can grow by redeploying the capital at a rate which is higher than above, at a return on capital higher than the average rate in the market. Then only the wealth will be created. Now let's look at few structural drivers for the Indian market which has happened in last say few years. So these are the reforms, structural reforms I should call. These are the structural reforms that has happened in last few years. So there is a direct benefit transfer, GST, RERA. RERA is a reform for the real estate. There is reforms in the PSU bank. There is power reform. There is agricultural reform. There are labor reforms. Insolvency and bankruptcy code has come. IBC process has speeded up. So the cases are getting resolved at much faster rate and at much better recovery rate. The corporate tax rate has been cut. Government has announced PLI for different sectors. The privatization has put in the fast lane. The scrappage policy has announced very recently, and there is thrust on the renewables like solar, EV, ethanol, CBG. So these are multiple reforms that have happened in last 1 year or maybe last 3-5 years, which will actually drive the market henceforth. Second reform which has happened, second structural driver which is there in the market is new army of retail investors. So number of retail investors have actually gone up substantially in last 1 year. So if you actually see number of demat accounts opened in last 1 year is more than the collective accounts opened in the last 3 years, the previous 3 years. Even retail has 45% share in the overall trading turnover on NSE. So this is a new army of retail investor which is actually driving the prices on the exchanges. If you look at different asset classes available for the investor, real estate has actually not given any good returns in last many years. Gold is trading at a different uncomfortable levels to invest. Deposits, bank deposits are giving you 3 or 3.5% returns. So there is more and more money which is coming into the stock markets. The things is changing. So there is the internet-based mobile enabled trading platforms. The availability and reach of internet has increased with 4G. Now there is 5G going to come. So it has reached to tier 2, tier 3 cities. So people are participating from entire country. Broking space become more competitive with more innovative offerings. The COVID-19 actually accelerated the adoption of the online culture. And there is something called as a Tina effect, which is there is no alternative. As I explained, so people relatively there are low returns offered by traditional products like FD, bond, MIS schemes. So people are actually looking more into the stock market. Second structural factor is the Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is I feel is going to the biggest structural driver for Indian stock market. So government has actually provided PLI incentive for multiple sectors. The total incentive government is going to provide over the next 5 years is going to be in the range of 2 lakh crores, and this is going to be provided over next 5 years. So even if I assume the average 40,000 or 50,000 crore going to be provided every year, then that should translate into 4 lakh to 5 lakh crore extra sales from the private sector. So we are actually talking about a massive private capex in next 5 years. And the incentive is provided in multiple sectors, including mobile manufacturing and electronic components, medical devices, advanced chemistry sales, auto spare parts, pharma, chemicals, textile, white goods, and steel. So almost multiple sectors are covered under this PLI incentive scheme, and there is going to be massive private capex going to unfold in next few years. This is something which is very important for people to understand when we talk about the Nifty levels. We always try to look at the Nifty P and we try to compare it with the historical Nifty P. But with changing index composition, the historical Nifty P is actually becoming irrelevant. So earlier people used to say that 15 P multiple for Nifty is a reasonable multiple, and people, so that's I'm talking about the forward PE multiple. So 15 forward PE multiple was a reasonably comfortable level for Nifty, but now since the index composition itself is changing, the P band is actually shifting upwards. So there are more non-cyclical, consumer-facing and new age stocks which are replacing the old traditional businesses. So if I compare Nifty in 2015 and 2020, there are three insurance companies like Bajaj Finserv, SBI Life and HDFC Life. There are three consumer companies like Britannia, Nestle and Titan, along with the high PE stocks like Bajaj Finance, Divi's Lab and Eicher Motor. So these are the stocks added to the index, whereas low PE stocks like ACC, Ambuja, Bank Baroda, PNB, Yes Bank, BHEL, Kane, Vedanta, these stocks actually exited the index. So what has happened is low PE stock actually made way for the high PE stocks in the index. So there are, if you look at today, there are only few stocks in the index with a very low PE like Coal India, NTPC, Power Grid, IOC, BPCL, GAIL and ONGC. They together contribute only 4% to the index, and those will eventually be replaced by high PE stocks in the future. So we are talking yesterday, there was an article in the paper saying that DMART can actually get into Nifty. So DMART has a multiple of almost 100 or maybe more than 100. So the point is, with increasing contribution from high PE stocks, index PE band will actually keep shifting higher. So it's not relevant to look at the historical Nifty PE. We need to understand the index composition has changed and the P multiple is going to be higher henceforth. Now, after we looked at the historical chart and look at structural drivers for the future, this is my piece of advice. This is the last but the least important maybe. The my piece of advice, you can implement, you can ignore. That's your choice. So first advice is always focus on micros and not macros. What is the debt to GDP ratio of Russia and what is the debt to GDP ratio of US, or what is the market cap to GDP ratio of UK? I don't think this is really relevant when we invest in small cap and mid caps. This data is more relevant for economists who want to decide the country weight and the sector weights, not for the people who are investing in small cap and mid caps. In small cap and mid caps, the story is entirely different. The story is always bottom up, and it majority times it is growing within the market. It is growing within the market. So you need to focus on the micros and not on the macros. Macros does provide the direction, but don't get lost in the macro data. It's always good to know the macro indicators, but what is good is not always relevant. So try to understand what is relevant for your investment hypothesis. Don't try to get confused by the jargons of the macro data. Leave it to the economist and you try to focus on the investment and the businesses. Second piece of advice is identify structural stories. So the structural stories are something which are the stories for next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. These are very long-term stories. Once you are able to identify the right structural stories, what you can only need to invest for long term and you don't need to churn your portfolios often. What you need to do is you need to just keep compounding your knowledge, and as you compound your knowledge, your money will keep on compounding. So try to identify structural stories, and these are few structural stories in my view. So one is chemicals and pharma. So I consider pharma as a specialty chemical only. So I just put it in one basket. So chemical and pharma. Second is CRAMS or CRAS or CSM or CMO. So it's all about contract manufacturing. So it can be a contract research and manufacturing. It could be contract research and development. It could be custom synthesis and manufacturing, or it could be pure contract manufacturing. Third is retail participation in capital market. We already spoke about how the retail participation is increasing in the capital market. So there are multiple stories you can actually play around this theme. Next is real estate and the building products. So we'll discuss about this further. So first is chemicals. So pharma and chemical seem to be a decadal theme for India. Next, Infi, TCS and HDFC Bank will actually emerge from this sector. The recent announcement made by Anupam Rasayan and Heikel about long-term contracts with MNC just the start, and there will be many more contracts coming to India from MNC giants in chemicals. The global merchant market for specialty chemical is about 700 to 750 billion dollar. India is just 4% of it, whereas China is 15% of the market. Even if some of the market share shifts from China to India, that's going to be big for India. Growing competitiveness of Indian companies with experienced team able to build and operate complex plant is becoming the advantage for Indian companies. So we are Indian people are operating in the chemicals since very long time. They have learned a lot in last few years. They are able to build and operate complex parts, complex plants. So I think this will add to the India advantage. And buyers' desire to diversify beyond China would spur growth in India's industry. So chemical is one of the structural story for India. Second is pharma. So as I said, pharma is nothing but specialty chemicals. So India imports 3.5 billion worth of APIs yearly. 70% of that comes from China. So PLI scheme will benefit the sector. The domestic pharma market is very resilient. Despite all the challenges, domestic pharma market is growing in double digits for very, very long time. US generic market has been stabilized from degrowth and now it started showing the growth, and Indian companies will take larger share in the US generic market. And Indian companies have rationalized the cost in last few years. In last 2015, 2016 to 2021, Indian company actually rationalized the cost, they deleveraged the balance sheets, their efficiency ratios are getting better and better. So chemicals and pharma is one of the structural stories for India for next 10 years. Second is CRAMS, or what you call as a CDMO, contract research and manufacturing, contract research and development. There is something called as CSM, which is which is custom synthesis and manufacturing. So when I talk about pharma, it is typically CRAMS. When I talk about agrochemical, it's typically CSM. So CDMO is a decadal opportunity for India with MNCs outsourcing more to India in both pharma as well as non-pharma. So it's something similar to IT wave in 1990s, and that's what I feel very strongly. The CDMO is going to be something like IT wave in 1990s. The difference, then the biggest difference is there are very, very strong entry barriers in CRAMS, because in CRAMS typically it takes years to work with the innovator to get a relevant player for them. So it takes almost 7 or 8 years to work with the innovator to get a new molecule. So Suven Pharma or Divi's has started CDMO in India some 20-25 years back, but there are still only 5 and 6 CDMO players in the pharma. And the reason is there are very, very strong entry barriers. So even if today someone thinks of getting into the CRAMS and the CDMO, it will take another 5 to 7 years to be a meaningful player in the sector. Agrochemical is another big CDMO opportunity. Again, there are only few players in India like Navin Fluorine, there are SRF, there is RT Industries. So there are only few players even in the agrochemical side. Now, when I talk about contract manufacturing, there is something called contract research and manufacturing, which is more complex, where the entry barriers are very, very strong. Apart from contract research, there is something known as pure contract manufacturing. And that pure contract manufacturing opportunities are there in pharma, it's there in chemical, FMCG, and electronics. So if you actually look at how the China has actually grown, it's all about contract manufacturing. So Americans innovate, Americans create, and then China manufactures. So China actually does a lot of contract manufacturing for American companies. So even if India can replicate some part of China, what it is doing in contract manufacturing, I think it's going to be a big story for India. So you can play that contract manufacturing through various sectors and various themes. It could be FMCG, it could be electronics, it could be chemicals. The next structural story is retail participation in capital market, which I already explained, so I don't want to again get into detail of it. But you can play this theme with different ideas. You can play by investing in stock exchanges like NSE, BSE, or MCX. You can either invest in depository services, or you can invest in AMCs, or you can invest in broking. There are multiple broking platforms now coming in the Indian market, so you can invest through broking platforms. So there are multiple ways you can participate in this particular structural story. Next one is real estate. So you can either invest in real estate stock, or you can play that story by investing in building products. The introduction of RERA and demonetization and GST, all three together actually forced a lot of small players to actually go out of the market. So market has actually shifted from unorganized to organized players. Initially, there were people who used to launch the scheme and they used to do the booking and then they used to complete the flats, give the completed flats. Now the trend has changed from owning under construction flat to completed flats. So only players with deep pockets and brand can survive in this market. There has been rationalization of competition because of RERA and demonetization and GST, and there are very limited funding options now. So this has actually changed the structure of the real estate story. So I think real estate is going to be another big theme in the next few years. So you can play either by investing in the real estate stock or you can invest in the building products. So in the building products, there are sanitary ware, there are tiles. You can play plywood or MDF story. You can play in pipes and fittings. You can play in paints and adhesive, or you can play in cables and electric. So this is the actionable item where I have just tried to put down few structural stories for long term. You can choose as per your understanding. Next piece of advice is avoid commodities. So when I say commodities, it's basically steel, cement, sugar. Sugar is now becoming actually a lot of people are saying that sugar is not no more a commodity because there is a ethanol story attached to the sugar sector. But in my view, ethanol is also a commodity, sugar is also a commodity. What ethanol is going to do is basically going to reduce the volatility of earnings for sugar companies. But the commodity nature of the sector doesn't change. So I would say that this is definitely not the time to invest in commodities. So if I look at the graph of Steel Authority of India from 2007 to 2021, this is the graph. So that the high that has been made in 2007, it is not still able to reach that high. And the low it has made in 2020 is 20 rupees. So after almost 13 years, the return has been, you can see the return, it's almost minus 90%. Let's look at the chart of Tata Steel. So in 2007, it has touched 1000 rupees and there was a zigzag pattern throughout the period and now it has broken the earlier high. In the low side, it was 150, 200. So on 13 years period basis, the return of the stock is actually been nothing. There is one more stock in the same sector, JSW Steel, and I have taken purposely this example. So we this maybe little later. This is a stock of ACC cement stock for last again 13 years. The stock has moved from 1300 rupees. That's a peak price in 2007. Now the price is around 2000. You can see the returns for last 13 years. So if I actually look at the price in 2020, the Corona times, then there has been negative return in last 13 years, right? The same story goes for Ambuja Cement. Now again, I have taken one more example in the same sector, which is Shree Cement. You can see the graph of Shree Cement. So Shree Cement is able to deliver almost 20x in the same period. So the point is, the right time to buy commodities is when the report losses, the capacity utilization is low, the pricing is low, and the margins are under pressure and the valuation is also depressed. Play in commodities only if you understand commodity well, because commodity is a cycle. If you invest in the wrong times and the tide turns, then you will be the last to know that. And by the time you realize, it will be down 50% or more than that. So commodities are not for buy and hold portfolios. You must time it well. And if you are compulsion to invest in commodities, then stay only with the best management with good capital allocation, efficient operations, and strong distribution network. And that's the reason why I've taken this example of Shree Cement. So when Gujarat Ambuja and ACC is not able to deliver any return for last 13 years, Shree Cement is actually delivered 20x return in the same sector. It is because of the great management in capital allocation, efficiency of the operations, and strong distribution network. The same story actually goes for JSW Steel. So again, if you want to invest in commodities, always stay with the best management who are good capital allocators, who has got most efficient operations running, and which has got a strong distribution network. Think rational. There is panic on both the sides of the market, on way up, on the way down. When market goes down, there is always a panic selling. When price goes down 50%, people think that the sales is also going to be 50% down, but that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Sales going down by 50% is a very, very extraordinary situation. And if it's going to stay only for very short term. It doesn't stay for long. If it stays for long, then obviously you are in a very, very wrong stock. So there is always panic on the way down because people are selling panically, and there is a panic on way up because people are buying panically. So don't be panic, think rational. Don't let FOMO hit you. FOMO is fear of missing out. So don't let fear of missing out hit you. Don't compare with how others are performing. Consistency is the most important parameter. If you are able to make 20-25% return on your portfolio consistently, then it's a very good return. And portfolio return is what ultimately matters and not individual stock returns. So always think rationally. This is playing safe versus playing big. So I have given you different structural stories. So one can actually identify a structural story and he can buy a basket of stocks in that particular sector and hold it for long term if you want to play safe. If you want to play big, which basically I like playing big. So if you want to play big, then you need to study little more detail in the sector. You need to identify who are the winners, who are going to be probable winners in the future, and you need to invest or you need to allocate more to the winners. But again, playing big comes with its own risk. So you need to have a very detailed understanding of the business if you really want to play big. This is very critical. Learn to ignore. Every day you will get new ideas. Every day there will be new ideas with new story and new price targets. You don't need to react each and everything that comes to your way. Keep focus. Ignore the noise. Ignore the negativity. Today, the social media platform becoming very popular for spreading the negativity. Stay away from the negativity. Ignore the noise and negativity and focus only on the business aspects. Stay with the quality, and this is true in all the cycles of the market. Stay always with the quality. In the bull market, everything will run, but bet only on the right management, bet only on the right businesses. Smart management will identify right opportunities and they will make it big for you. In bad times, they will allocate capital wisely and adapt faster to the situation. So always stay with the quality. It always pay. It will. So if you invest in quality, it may go down with the market, but the bounce will be much faster and much higher. When I talk about quality, it is always related to the nature of the underlying business and not related with the market cap. So I am not saying that you should be investing in large cap. What I'm trying to say is the nature of underlying business. So quality relates to nature of underlying business and not the market cap. So I have just tried to give the performance of my portfolio in last January 2020 to December 2020. So when there was a sharp fall because of Corona, the Nifty went down by 39%, whereas portfolio was down only 28%. But when the bounce came, Nifty went up by 89%, whereas portfolio went up by 200%. So overall, for a calendar year, the Nifty has given 15% returns, whereas portfolio has actually given 116% return. It's 100% outperformance to Nifty. So that's what happens if you invest in quality stocks. And this is something which is strictly avoid. So please avoid buying at any price. Valuation is important. Valuation is always important. So I am trying to put down few stocks from chemicals, few stock from uh, pharmaceuticals, and few stock from FMCG. P multiple of 80 and 90 is definitely not sustainable. These multiples are not sustainable. Few people can give the rationale saying there is a 20-year CAGR is 18%, 20-year CAGR or 20% for these businesses. But what is important is consistency of growth, whether these companies are able to replicate 20-year CAGR for 10-year period, whether they are able to replicate for last 5 years CAGR. So you need to compare the sales growth in different periods. If the sales growth is consistent across the periods, then we can call it a consistent growth. Otherwise, 20 years CAGR may look very high, but 5 years CAGR may be very low. So if I look at different industries, different stocks in different industries, then Asian Paint has actually given 16% sales CAGR for last 20 years, whereas there are multiple companies like Divi's Lab or Cadila or even for the matter Deepak Nitrite has given 17 or 18% CAGR for last 20 years. If I just compare across 20-year period, 10-year period and 5-year period, the growth is actually decelerating for many stocks. So if you look at Pidilite, Asian Paints, HUL, Titan, and multiple other stocks, this growth is actually decelerating. So 5-year sales CAGR is actually lower than 10 years sales CAGR, and it is actually lower than 20 years sales CAGR. There is only one outlier I can see here is Deepak Nitrite, where 20 years CAGR is actually lower than 10 years CAGR, and it is actually lower than 5 years CAGR. So growth is actually accelerating in case of Deepak, whereas growth is decelerating in other cases. So extrapolating past can be very dangerous because you don't know what to extrapolate. Should you be extrapolate 5 years CAGR, or you should extrapolate 10 years CAGR, or you should extrapolate 20 years CAGR? It's a very tricky situation. So extrapolating is actually very dangerous. You need to really understand what will be the growth rate for next few years. Sales growth, margin expansion, and PE expansion are three levers for wealth creation. If you are playing right now, if you're buying these stocks at 80 and 90 P multiple, then you are playing only on the sales growth. So even if the earnings double in next 5 years, but P contracts by 50%, then investor will be left with zero returns for 5 years. So whatever P of 80, 90 you are seeing, it is definitely not sustainable. This P is only because there is a very low interest rate around the world. There is a high institutional inflows in India. There are very few opportunities of this particular size, so there is a scarcity premium built in this particular P multiple. But after 5 years, when there will be multiple more companies with much higher growth rate and having market cap more than 1 lakh crore, the thing may change. So people will shift from 80p multiple to 40p multiple. So every good business can become a bad investment at some price, whereas every bad business can become a good investment at some price. So entry price is very, very important. Entry price decides your final return. So don't ignore valuations. What is important is you need to understand the base effect. Infosys had sales of $100 million in 1999. It got $1 billion sales in 2004 and $10 billion sales in 2018. So sales actually grew by 10x in 5 years first. Then it took 14 years to become 10x. And we don't know when it will become 10x now, right? So as base becomes bigger, it's difficult to replicate similar growth rate. 10 to 12% annual growth considered good for large cap IT in today's world. If you look at 1999, Infosys actually doubled the sales in just 1 year, from 1999 to 2000. So base effect is very, very important. You need to understand the base effect. There are very few companies, very few companies which are immune to base effect, like Google or Amazon, right? But otherwise, base effect does play a role. And the last, the summary. So when market trading low, focus on growing the capital. When market is trading high, focus on protecting the capital. People often do reverse. So when market trades low, all risks are already priced in. So whatever you buy, chances of losing capital actually minimum. Reverse is true for the bull market. In the bull market, people doesn't focus on the risk. People are only focusing on the returns, and that's the time when risk is actually high. So one mistake can cost you years of zero or negative returns. So only focus on businesses which you understand well. I think that's it for the day. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Anaga.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for those insights. We have received a lot of questions, and let me just quickly take you through the questions which everyone is very interested to know. So the first question here is that uh, from a gentleman asking that even in an overbought bull market, opportunities that are available for less than 1x the sales with improving fundamentals or business prospects. In such a scenario, do you wait for correction or do you buy them in limited quantities?
As I said, I would say that you should not be waiting for the correction. Correction will come and go, but if the business is good and the valuation is good, in the long run you will definitely make money. So just I'll give you my example. I have never been in cash in last 9 years. I was always 100% invested in the market. So even before the corona, I was invested 100% in the market. And despite being that, my return has been 45% to 50% CAGR for last 9 years. There has been low churning. There has been almost holding for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and still I am able to deliver these returns only because focus only on the businesses. If you think the business is good and the valuation is good, you can actually go ahead. Don't wait for the correction. Corrections will come and go, but you need to have a long-term thinking for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have another gentleman asking, from where does one get the business intrinsic value? So this is, will be the main take home for them from this webinar.
Okay, so business intrinsic value is typically people go calculating by using DCF, but again, as I said, DCF is good in theory. In practice, DCF never works because the assumptions that you make in the DCF are very, very volatile. So when I say intrinsic value, what I mean is any business. So in the present scenario, you can say that the intrinsic value of the business can be captured by the P multiple. So you can say, so if even if you do the DCF, you can actually go and put the P multiple to it. So intrinsic value basically is the inherent nature of the business. So if a business is in the growing phase, obviously it will have a different inherent characteristic associated with it. If the business is matured, then it will have a different inherent characteristic with it. So you need to understand in which phase your business is. And in that particular phase, you need to give that value to that business. So in the growing phase, obviously the multiple can be higher. In the mature business, the multiple can be lower. In the market, things actually happen reverse. So if you see, the large cap companies actually get higher multiples and small cap companies actually get lower multiples. But I would say that the companies which are actually in the growing phase, they should get higher multiple, whereas the companies which are actually mature, they should get lower multiples. So that's what I mean by the intrinsic business value.
Okay.
And that business intrinsic business value doesn't change from quarter to quarter or year to year. That remains. So there could be short-term blips, there could be short-term events that actually have an impact on the business, but they are very short-term. In long term, the intrinsic value doesn't change. So if I talk in terms of say DCF, if I plot a DCF for next say 20 years, even if there is a blip in sales and profit for 1 year, how much impact that will have on my entire value of the business? It will be very, very minuscule, right? In the DCF, because I'm plotting a DCF for 20 years. So 1 year cash flow, change in cash flow doesn't have much value in the entire value of the business. So that's what I'm trying to say. So in the long run, the intrinsic value doesn't change over every quarter or every year. What changes is the business sentiments. And as the sentiment changes, the price of the stock actually varies.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. There is another question. Is a person is asking, is there any other way to identify way of reading or identifying companies when their ROCE is low? So in short, should one prefer qualitative analysis rather than quantitative?
So I basically always go for a qualitative analysis. I never do quantitative analysis. I always try to understand the qualities of the business, and based on my understanding, I try to project what will be the future ROC and what will be the future cash flows. So, as I mentioned in last webinar, the multi-baggers come only when your future ROC is much higher than the past ROC or historic ROC. But to understand future ROC, obviously you need to understand a lot about the business. So it's all about qualitative analysis that you need to do.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is that could you just give a your view on PSUs?
No, I will not give any view on any stock or sector right now. It will take a long, but for PSUs, again, as I said, there are different sector in PSUs. Some PSUs may do better, some PSUs may not do. So I think it's very subjective.
So, okay, thank you, sir. So we have a question from Mr. Rajesh Patil. He's asking that is the new army of retail investors got something to do with the coronavirus?
There is some effect of corona, as I said, because of corona, there are a lot of people sitting at home. They are working from home, so obviously they are doing more trading. As the corona goes away, there will be some impact. But I think what has happened is there has been structural shift in the saving patterns. So when people earlier were investing more in FDs and real estate and gold, those people are now shifting their savings into the market. So I think there is a structural shift in the saving pattern, and this shift will continue. I don't think it's going to stop after the corona goes away.
So, sir, just, elaborating, there's one more because there's one more question in line to that. So what do you think are the structural changes which have come due to COVID? Are these because of government policies? And most importantly, could these yield long-term benefits for the investments?
So as I explained in my structural drivers for the Indian capital market, I think some part of the retail participation is only due to corona. Other than that, other factors are irrespective of the corona. So the PLI scheme, the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, that is not because of corona. That is something to do with becoming the independent import, not being dependent on the imports. So there has been a very large import that we do today in different sectors. So that scheme basically entails to reduce the import, and that's going to remain a long-term story. So government has given almost 2 lakh crore incentive that actually translate into almost 50,000 crore per year, which actually translate into 5 lakh crore sales, extra sales I'm talking about. So it's a very big structural driver. It will actually results into very large private capex in the country. So it's going to be structured. It's going to be long term.
Okay. Sir, there's another question. We have a gentleman asking, how do you deploy the cash at hand? Do you add existing stocks based on valuation, hunt for new stocks? And what is the best portfolio size? Concentrated to 10-15 or diversified to 20-30 based on risk profile?
So I always prefer concentrated investing. So I always prefer having 10-12 stocks in the portfolio. I don't go for too much of diversification because I feel diversification happens only when you don't understand the business right. If you understand the business well, then you don't do diversification. Secondly, if you have 20-30 stocks in the portfolio, obviously you can't study 20-30 stocks in detail. So that's another reason why I chose to be concentrated portfolio. What was the earlier question you said?
So,
To deploy
how
the
do you
capital.
deploy cash?
Right. So if I have the existing stock itself looks, so it's all about alternative, right? So if I think that my existing stock itself can give me better returns, so when I say returns, it's a risk adjusted returns. So when the existing stock itself can give me better risk adjusted returns, I'll go for the same stock. It's a journey. So we keep hunting for new stocks every day. But it's not like, so you need to have your own framework. So typically what happens in my case is I have my own investment framework. So whenever a new idea comes to me, it typically gets eliminated within a minute or two because of my framework. So I focus only on very few stocks which actually fits into my investment framework. So my time spent on new stocks is actually very low because of the investment framework. And since I have very few stocks to study, I can actually go deeper and in detail. So to give you specifically to your question, if I have existing stock is offering me better risk adjusted return, I'll go with the existing stocks. If I have a new stock which is offering me better risk adjusted return, I'll go for a new stock. But I don't look for the market levels or anything. I look for the level of that particular business, level of that particular stock. If I feel that particular stock is at a good valuation, I'll go and buy.
We have another slew of questions actually, but I'll pick up a few from that. Uh, so what do you do? So how do you identify structural changes in a business or businesses ahead of the market? And what do you do when you're invested in that business and its valuations run too fast and far ahead of the fundamentals?
Okay.
So do you trim your position or do you exit?
So there are basically, so exiting a stock basically happens on two things. One, as you rightly said, if the valuation runs too ahead of time and I have an alternative, then only I'll switch. Just because the valuation is very high, I can't switch, because it's not only about exiting the stock, it is also about redeploying that capital. If I don't have an alternative opportunity where I can redeploy that capital, then I'll better stay with the same stock, even if it is overvalued for short term. If the long term story is still intact, and if I see that there can be a low return period for say next 6 months or 1 year, I'm okay with that. Because finding a new story and redeploying capital in that is also a challenging task. So a lot of time what happens is people keep on switching between the stocks based on the valuation, but they end up deploying the capital at lower rate, so lower returns I should say. So as I said, so I will exit the stock only when I feel that the structural drivers for the future are not there, or the valuation is very high and I have some alternative to redeploy the capital.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have another question. The person is asking, could you just share your view on, maybe if you would want to, on insurance players, and whether there's a market opportunity there or
So
not?
honestly, I am not good at financial sector, so I don't think I have much view on the insurance. I don't understand honestly the insurance sector, so I never invested in insurance yet.
Okay. Just a announcement for all our attendees here. We are moving towards the last question, so I would request if you could spruce up your question asking. My next question is, so if you could just tell us your view on momentum investing in time. The markets are at all-time highs.
So I have never done that. So I have no view on momentum. I'm a very, very bad guy in momentum. So I am a person who actually buy and hold for very, very long term. So I don't think I can give you right answer to this.
Himanshu, I really hope that answers your question. We have another question where a person is asking, would you consider demergers as an event to look on growth stories?
Demerger can be looked at as a special situation in some cases, but again, it all depends upon which business is getting demerged and what you're basically getting out of the demerger. So it's very special situation, so it's very subjective. So it's depend upon the specific situation. Not it's not generic for everything.
Okay. We have a very interesting question, Michael Burry, which I think a lot of people know because he had predicted the 2008 fall and everything. But he has right now made a prediction that market cash. He's predicting market cash in the coming days. So, sir, the gentleman is asking, what is your view on the emerging markets in that case?
So I have a full belief in Indian market. I think there are a lot of structural drivers for the Indian market. Uh, but as I again said, I am more focused on the business, individual stocks and individual businesses rather than the complete market. There could be corrections in the market, but they are going to be there for the very short term. As I explained in the first chart, 2007 to 2021, there were multiple corrections during 13 years. But if you actually see, there are multiple stocks which are able to deliver 100x return in the same period. So summary is you should always be focusing on the individual businesses and individual stocks, not only on the market. There will be corrections, but in the long run, if you invest in better stocks, then you will actually can compound your capital. Just to give you my example, in the same period from 2008, so I have started in 2012, I would say. So from 2012 today, in 8.5 years, it's almost 40 times the entire portfolio I'm seeing. There was multiple correction from 2012 to 2021. There are multiple corrections, but still I think I could able to get 40x return on the portfolio. This is just because of the buy and hold style and because of choosing the right businesses. So I haven't done any churning. I haven't been in the cash. I have never timed the market. I haven't done any momentum trading. Nothing. It is all about purely buying right businesses and riding it for long term.
Okay, and so we have a very interesting question. A gentleman is asking, could you give an anecdotal experience of one of your investments during a high run, and tell us how do you specially allocate specially during such a run up, if you could maybe.
I actually didn't understand this question very honestly.
So could you just share an experience from, a personal experience about how you probably invested in a stock which was, during a high run, and how did
So
you
I have
allocate?
invested. So in case of my stock, so most of the people know now. I have been my most beloved stock is Lotus Lab. So I have been investing in Lotus Lab at every level. So I have invested in Lotus Lab since last 3 years, and I have been investing in Lotus at every price level. So last time I bought Lotus at even I think 485 rupees. So if the story is good and if I think the future is going to be good, then I don't mind investing at a higher prices as well. So the same thing happened in say Suven Pharma, which is another stock. Another is Deepak Nitrate is another stock. So I have already disclosed all these three stocks publicly. That's why I'm giving only these three examples. So I have been investing in this stock at every level. So if the story is good for long term, you can invest at every price. It doesn't matter. So you don't need to get biased with your entry price. That's what I always keep telling people. Don't get anchored to your entry price. You need to think about buying is an independent decision of everything in the past. So don't get anchored to your entry price. If you think the story is still good, you can still buy. In fact, when you buy at the higher price, you have been in the stock for longer time, so your knowledge about the stock has also been compounded, so you know more about the business by that time. So I think I answered your question, I guess.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, lastly, I mean, I would thank all our attendees for their slew of questions. So, if you would just like to summarize the entire webinar for all our attendees over here.
So again, that's why I kept this summary last slide here. So, so I will again say that always try to focus only on businesses which you understand well. Don't try to compare yourself with what others are doing and what others are performing. The fear of missing out can actually lead to very disaster consequences. So always try to focus only on the businesses you understand well. If you think that you are getting a good business at a good valuation, go and buy. Don't wait for correction. Correction will come and go, but your business will keep performing irrespective of the market level, irrespective of the corrections. I think that's it
Thank
from my
you.
side. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone actually who has attended. Hope it was very useful session for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. As sir rightly said, when you're going in for stocks, valuation is key. Sir, I would like for this very fruitful interaction. And from all the questions that we have received, I am sure that the audience enjoyed. They found your expertise of significant value. And there's so many questions, on how simple, but yet how insightful the entire PPT was. So thank you for that.
Thanks a lot.
They'll gain a lot from this experience. And to our audience, to our attendees, it's a Saturday, but again, thank you so much for tuning in on this beautiful morning. We look forward to having you all join us back again for our next webinar. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and stay calm. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.